we need to create the habit to ask this question. The question, what needs to be understood here, right? Because if we don't create the habit, then what happens is this. A situation comes, there is an emotional activation, and then because you're not into the habit, it may take you a long time to come to realize that it's as simple as asking for that piece of understanding that is missing. And then you may go a week suffering unnecessarily because you didn't have this habit already in place, right? But it doesn't matter, okay, you can take your time to create the habit, but eventually you want that habit to be in the mind-body organism, which is a program, right? You want it to be solid like a rock, so that a problem comes, an emotional activation happens, and immediately the question begins to arise in the mind, right? Wow, what needs to be understood here? There is something really important for sure that is missing. So the more you do this, in the beginning you may go through hours or days before the question arises in your brain. Then at some point, this question becomes totally second nature, immediately comes. Yeah, and then you save time, you save suffering, and you save suffering for others too, because you don't carry the grudges and the resentment inside, and then the other person, will not carry it either, because you cannot hate somebody that doesn't hate you. Yeah. Not for too long, at least.
This makes sense.
And the first step in all this, in these 5 steps that I mentioned, which is observing, is extremely important. Observing the ego, for example, because after awakening, the ego is not completely gone, of course. Yeah, there is a huge ego that remains there. It depends. In some people, can be very large, and in other people may not be that large. But there will be ego there. And then you want to watch it, right? You don't want the ego to take over. So let's say at some point the ego gets angry. Yeah, you want to see it. Oh, it's getting angry because obviously it has an expectation that has not been fulfilled. Oh, it's getting proud. Yeah, the ego is feeling proud about something that it's assuming that he did it, right? And it's not true. It's not true. There is only one doer, and the doer is consciousness itself, right? But the ego is a specialist in assigning credit to itself, right? And saying, look at me, I did this. And it's not true. So, but you want to see it. You want to see the ego, having these feelings, and just by watching it, being aware of it, there is an immediate detachment from that. Yes.
If I hear you correctly, we can feel these feelings. There's nothing wrong with feeling these feelings, but you're saying if we use the point in observing, such as, okay, I know I'm feeling real good because of what took place here. This person got healed instantly, or I put on a good show, and this play says, okay, look, I know that I am not the doer. Consciousness is the doer. Okay, so you step back, but you're still feeling good. So it's okay to experience the feelings.
Yes, of course.
But if you're aware that you are not the doer, that you cannot take the credit,
right,
you're safe,
Yes, you're safe.
All right.
You're safe, exactly, because you are observing it, you are observing the organism, experiencing, let's say, a little pride, right? For a job well done. Okay, that's safe, that's fine. You allow the organism to have that feeling, but you watch it, and you know internally that if you're a healer, for example, and you did a good job, so to speak, and the person was healed, then you see the movement of pride in the organism, and if it's not too much, if it's not a, a, a narcissistic level of pride, right? You allow it to be and you just watch it. If it's too much, if you begin to notice that the level of pride has gone way too far, then you want to first notice it, right? And second, you need to begin to do the type of work that we discussed before, right? You may want to ask to begin with how this pride can be removed.
It works for both ends, whether you're angry this happened or whether you're overjoyed that you got great results.
Right, exactly. It works also for feelings of all type of negative feelings, all type of guilt.
So the action of observing is detachment.
Yes, it's detachment.
Thank you.
It is. In the observing, you are free from what is going on there. If you are in the witness position. The witness position is very liberating because there is no identification with the mind-body organism and its quirks and neuroses and whatever. Keep in mind also that the mind-body organism will never be perfect, right? So no matter how much embodiment you do, there will be some things there, in the mind-body organism that will be less than ideal. The mind-body organism is a dualistic entity, so it has to have lights and shadows, right, to exist. If it becomes perfect, may dissolve, may not exist really. So I highly recommend not becoming a purist. I'm gonna, trying to aim for perfection. No. Perfection is the perfect attitude towards imperfection. It's not what we think.
Well, then maybe you can answer this. I've used certain characters as an example to mirror my goal. Case in point. It said in Deuteronomy that Moses was 120 years old. And his eye was not dim, neither was his natural strength abated. So I think, okay, look. Oh, I see a problem here already. But I'll continue. All right, since God, and it sounds like we're separated from God, but anyway, I'll continue. Since God is no respecter of persons, then it is divine will to be free from sickness and disease. And when it's time to give up the body like Moses did, because they laid him on Mount Sinai, he passed on without any sickness and disease, and he had his full strength. And didn't even need glasses. And they had glasses back then. It says, and his eye was not dim. So therefore, in my thinking, I will not tolerate any sickness or disease or any delusion in this mind-body organism. So I hold myself to that standard. But you're saying that's not right?
Okay. You can program the mind-body organism around thoughts of strength and health, right? And even abundance. That is something that you can do in the mind-body organism. So let us say that during the process of self-development, you have already programmed the mind-body organism quite skillfully into thoughts of strength and health, right?
Yes.
Well, if that is the case, you don't need to regress that back to a more morbid state. You may even support that process, but know now that who is going to have, good health and live 120 years? The body, right? Not you.
Okay. All right.
And as your identification with consciousness strengthens, you may reconsider, your desire for living 120 years here. It may change. Not reconsider it. It may change. Like it happened to me, that I was presenting these classes on physical immortality, and I was very interested in all the new research on supplements on physical immortality that can extend your telomeres, and then you become cellularly immortal and blah blah. And I was presenting classes on the subject, and suddenly that desire to attain physical immortality after awakening, at some point, it just collapsed, right? And I haven't been able to find it again. There has been kind of glimpses of it now and then, but it's kind of gone.
Why? Is it because you lost interest, or because of fear? Or fear?
Because lost interest to live so long.
Okay, I see a difference here. The motivation for me to be like Moses is fear of pain. And fear of discomfort.
Right.
That's the motivation.
Yes. Right, there are many fears that are bigger than death. Fears of pain, fear of dependency, for example, depending on somebody else for going to the bathroom. This can be a horrific experience for many, worse than death, right? So I understand that those fears, you can ask for the removal of them in the organism, and they will be removed. It's as simple as that.
We can treat it just like we treat anything.
Yeah. You say, well, is this serving me, or is this a reflection of my divine nature, or is this something that is more of the body?
And who is fearing? The mind body is fearing, and not my divine nature?
The body is fearing, of course.
Well, I can see the lie already, because the body can't have any fear, because the body is a non-entity to begin with.
The mind-body organism is experiencing all these emotions and thoughts. Now, consciousness is perceiving them. It's just a perceiving of them. But an emotion is energy in motion, meaning that the energy in the body has taken a certain position, so to speak. Yeah, it's locked in certain ways. So it's totally a mind-body organism issue. And that can be released.
That can be what?
Be released.
You mean the concept of a mind-body organism, or the concept of a fear of dying?
The fear of dying can be released. The fear of depending on other people can be released. The fear of pain can be released.
Okay.
For example, I remember having a lot of fear of pain. That was part of this, the programs here, and at some point I went through a couple of experiences that had to do with my teeth, that I experienced a kind of excruciating pain, but at the same time there was something that there was a certain acceptance that triggered a detachment from the pain. So after those experiences, the fear of pain has not bothered me anymore. Or not as much. But you can ask for the removal of these things, you know. You as the ego, as the little self that do not exist, still you hold that power. That power is still there because it's the law of free will in this universe. That little self has to ask for help. This is so interesting because how is it possible that the whole spiritual journey is in the end controlled by the ego? It's controlled, but it is not performed by the ego. The ego is the one that needs to ask for help, but the healing happens as a result of the divine working on the mind-body organism and chipping off the ego. So the ego needs to consent to be reduced. And you see this in the story of the Mahabharata. Anyone here has read the Mahabharata?
Yes.
You read?
Which
you
story?
read? Huh?
Which one?
Well, there are many. Have you read the Battle of Kurukshetra? In the Battle of Kurukshetra?
Oh yeah, Bhagavad Gita.
Right. The Bhagavad Gita is the beginning of the battle. Yeah.
Okay.
But the battle itself is part of the Mahabharata. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then during the battle, the Pandavas, which are the good guys, are losing the war because their uncle, which is a great warrior and has great integrity, their uncle is guiding the forces of evil and is winning over the good guys.
All right.
So the Pandavas, which represent the five chakras in the body, there are 5 brothers. They decide to go to talk with their uncle, which is the enemy, at night to his tent and have a talk with their uncle. Because they know that if their uncle is so powerful that if he does not consent to be killed, then they will not be able to win the war. So they sneak at night into his tent and the uncle welcomes them. They sit with him and they ask, "Uncle, you know that if you don't allow us to kill you, we will lose the war. And the positive forces need to win here." And then the uncle says, he thinks for a moment and he says, "Yes, it is true. If don't allow you to kill me, you will lose the war." And then he says, "Tomorrow," and he points to Arjuna, which is one of the Pandavas, "you're going to throw an arrow to me and I will die." Yeah. So the next day, Arjuna throws an arrow to his uncle and his uncle falls to the ground, but he doesn't die. He lingers there for a long time. But he's, already out. And then they win the war. And during that time, this uncle, his name is Bhishma in the play, this uncle is laying down there on the ground and he is teaching to others from his wisdom until he dies. Well, you may imagine who represents Bhishma, right?
Well, is that Lord Krishna is representing Vishnu?
It's a bit tricky to get it, but Bhishma represents the ego.
Oh, the ego.
Right. The ego is immortal. It doesn't die unless it consents to.
Okay.
So in the play, Bhishma represents the ego, and when he was young, he attained integrity. He was a man with integrity, meaning the ego arrived to a point where it had integrity. And he even took, in the story, the vow of celibacy, and as a result, he was given a boon to die only when he wanted, if he consented to die. So when he had to consent to die for the war to be won by the positive side. So it's the same. You see, when you ask for awakening, when you as the ego ask for awakening, which is what happened to me, that for months I was asking for awakening until it happened, then basically it's the Bhishma in us that is saying, yes, I want to die. And the awakening is a moment where the ego becomes mortally wounded, because it is seen through as not real, and now the embodiment process finishes the job.
Can you do the same thing by asking for the embodiment, like you did when you asked for the awakening?
It's a good idea. I will try.